In Benue State, the end result of the local government elections last weekend has sparked controversy. The ruling All Progressives Congress has swept all 23 local government seats. The APC's landslide victory has drawn criticism from key opposition leaders, including the Senate Minority Leader, Abba Moro. Others say the election is a sham. Moro has accused the ruling party and Governor Hyacinth Alaya of orchestrating or conducting an election that is questionable. Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by Senate Minority Leader, who also represents Benue Northeast Senatorial District, Senator Abba Moro.
Benue South.
Benue South. Sorry, apologies for that. Benue South. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Right. So your party, the PDP, took a thorough beating last weekend. You must feel awful about that in the local government elections.
Well, you call it beating. I see it otherwise, because you get beaten when elections are conducted and you lose fair and square. But in this particular circumstance, what we witnessed on Saturday, 5th of October, was a sham, was a charade. It wasn't an election.
Why specifically do you describe it as a sham?
Because electorates were their various polling units and rest of them. We were in their local government, ward headquarters and local government headquarters. No electoral materials were supplied. No electoral officials appeared at the polling units. And all of a sudden, in the evening, election results started coming out. And what we found out later, and it's on record, is that what elections were conducted in houses of chieftains of the APC in various local governments, and that the local government election was conducted actually on Thursday, 1st or 2nd of October, in Makurdi. And so in that situation, how do you characterize the election? It can only be a sham election.
Okay, so what are you going to do about it now? What's your next move, or your party?
Yeah, as a law-abiding organization, the PDP has decided that those who feel aggrieved and think that they have been shortchanged in the election should approach the Electoral Tribunal.
You know, the state chairman of APC, contrary to what you say, Mr. Benjamin Amale, has actually commended the State Electoral Commission and the governor as well for what he says was a level playing field provided for all parties.
You can't provide a level playing ground for all parties when you do not supply materials to electoral units, when you do not send officials to electoral units, when officials were not even trained, no sign of any arrangement of election. You cannot call it free and fair. And unfortunately, it is coming from a Reverend Father Governor. Very, very unfortunate indeed, because the expectation of Benue people was that there was going to be a change of attitude from the past. And if you want to know, what do you expect from a so-called chairman of a party who has deceived the people, who have hijacked the process and declared themselves the winner of the election? You don't expect anything less. For them, it is free and fair.
Right.
For us, it was a sham.
Right. You know, from 1999, Benue State had for a long time been a PDP state. But this changed from last year, you know, during the 2023 elections. And now it's almost totally wiped out. What really happened? Are you ready to accept some responsibility, or is your party ready to accept some responsibility for what has transpired all these years?
There is no doubt that when you lose election, reasonably, you accept responsibility for your failure. But I can tell you that what happened in the last election that got PDP defeated, which I accept, was that we were a little complacent, one, and then our people pandered to various sentiments, which led to some level of anti-party activities when PDP members openly canvassed for votes for opponent parties. And so we have learned our lessons, and that is why, coming from the throes of that defeat, the PDP has started organizing congresses to elect new sets of officials from the ward to the local government to the state, whose Congress was held on the 3rd of October. And we have a brand new set of leaders of the party now. And our message to our people is to ask them to come back home. Let's work together, let's reorganize ourselves, let's synergize, let's complement our efforts and ensure that in the next election, PDP becomes the winning party.
But based on these things that you've just narrated, do you sincerely believe that there is a future for PDP in Benue State?
Definitely. Definitely, because as you have rightly characterized, PDP, Benue State has been a PDP state right from the inception of this dispensation. And I can tell you, people who are even mostly in APC now, people who are mostly in SDP now, or Labour Party, are all products of PDP. And because we are facing a common opponent in this exercise, because we are facing a common enemy of the state at this moment, all of us are prepared to woo ourselves back to our old fold. And I can assure you there will be a different song in 2027 election. So
let's stay on PDP because you just mentioned 2027. How do you see the state of affairs for your party at the national level? It's bleeding. And some would say that the PDP is dying.
Well, on the contrary, I can tell you, out of the ashes of war comes peace. No matter the differences that we have now, the present circumstances of the Nigerian people demands that men and women of goodwill will come together at the appropriate time to ensure that what we have at the moment that is hurting many Nigerians will not be there in 2027. And so I agree with you that we have some differences at the national level, just as we have in several chapters, which is also not peculiar to PDP alone. If you come down to the other parties, we all have our skirmishes here and there. But when the time comes to realistically appraise the situation in which we find ourselves, and political elites, leaders of our various political parties and our people, we have a responsibility to come together to form some form of alliance, reorganize ourselves, and ensure that we produce the best for this country.
So there's a bill that's been introduced to the Senate. It's called the National Independent Local Government Electoral Commission bill. Is meant to set up an organization that will conduct local government elections. Why do we need this when we already have the State Independent Electoral Commission? Can you tell us more about this since you're a senator?
Well, the reason for the new bill are twofold. First, you had the Supreme Court ruling on the autonomy of local governments. Secondly, there is provision in the Constitution for the conduct of local elections by state independent electoral commissions. Unfortunately, from Akwa Ibom to Rivers to Benue to wherever, elections have not been conducted in most of these local governments. They are trying to perhaps fulfill all righteousness because of the Supreme Court ruling that local government elections must be conducted, and that unless you have a democratically elected local government, no federal allocation should go to these states. What we have seen is selection. Because, take my state for an example. We have 23 local governments. The ruling party has won all the chairmanship elections in the 23 local governments. We have 276 council wards. The ruling party has won in all the council wards. I mean, even by mere calculation, is it possible, for instance, that I am so unpopular in my council ward that my people will not even elect a councillor on the platform of my party? If you go to Rivers, like everybody is saying now, of all the local councils, the APP that the governor supports has won all the elections.
The same thing in Anambra, yes.
You go to Anambra, yes. The same story. And so the National Assembly became a little worried that democracy was certainly on trial, and that something drastic must be done to put us back on track, because we cannot have a one-party state in all the states of the Federation as a result of local government elections. When we come to national elections conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, virtually all political parties are represented in the winning. But when it comes to local election, they just sit in their comfort zones and write results. And that is why the National Assembly thinks that there should be a separate body to conduct local elections, even though some of us believe that we have electoral institutions already in place, and that all that is required is to amend the relevant sections of the Constitution so that the National Electoral Commission should be able to conduct elections into the... I was council chairman from 1999 to 2006, and the Independent National Electoral Commission conducted all our elections.
So if we have a separate body, as the National Assembly is proposing, then what is the job of the State Independent Electoral Commission? And the counter would also be that the federal doesn't even conduct the best elections anyway. So,
yeah. But we are driven between two evils now. Between me and you, apart from isolated instances, the Independent National Electoral Commission had demonstrated some level of maturity and responsibility in conducting elections. And so, if the State Independent Electoral Commission cannot conduct free, transparent, and credible election, then let it be scrapped. And the reason why some members of the National Assembly are trying to propose a new body is the fact that there is specific provision in the Constitution for the the establishment of the State Independent Electoral Commission. And so what we require here is to perhaps use this bill now, debate on it, put it to public hearing, and then come up with an amendment of the relevant section of the Constitution that provides for the establishment of the State Independent Electoral Commission. And once it is amended, the State Independent Electoral Commissions across the country becomes moribund. So,
part of the problem that we face currently in Nigeria in terms of the foundation, or what we call structure, is an over-centralization at the federal level. And we have been trying to move away from that. With this bill, are we not moving towards that direction? Again, why does everything has to be done by a national body?
Well, at the moment, I agree with you, because I have been in the forefront of the autonomy of local governments, and I believe in the devolution of powers. But we are looking for solutions to problems. And once we have extraordinary problems on our hands, we have to find an extraordinary solution to the problem. At the moment, if we have State Independent Electoral Commission that conduct elections in the various states, that favor the ruling party in the various states, that doesn't allow electorates of the opposition group to participate in the electoral process, we don't have a choice but to find a body that can conduct the election. After all, the Independent National Electoral Commission conducts elections in the states. And so the only leg that is left out, that is being abused by state governments and the State Independent Electoral Commission, is a local government election. And so we have to find a way around it. And the only way to do it is to take away the power to conduct these elections that will not be transparent, that will not be credible, away from the independent bodies of the states.
Right. So solving a problem by creating more problems. You do know that before this year, previous local government elections we've had, although not many elections were held because you had all these caretaker chairmen, but previous elections, there was a diversity of parties and not one party won them all in the past. So are you confident that you're not creating a catastrophic, or not making a catastrophic decision with this one? It needs to be debated more.
Yeah, I think that we need to engage ourselves in further conversations on the issue towards finding a solution to the problem. But the spontaneous reaction to the bastardization of the electoral process by the Independent State Commission is to say, take it away from them. But because power abhors vacuum, there has to be a space for an organization that can do a better job than the State Independent Electoral Commissions.
Right. Senator Abba, Moro, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.